Hey everybody, and welcome to another CollectionDX video review. Today we're checking out Kiryu in the S.H. Monsterarts line, and he is from the 2002 movie Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. As you can see, Kiryu is sporting its flight pack and the arm-mounted double lasers. You have to take off 3 fins from the back of Kiryu to attach the flight pack, and the arm-mounted lasers have a peg on them which attach to that little circular recess in the arm. And you also have to take a piece that's similar to this on the elbow, take it off, and you put in the piece with the cable that's attached to the lasers. One thing I love about the S.H. Monsterarts Kiryu is that since it is a mechanical design, all the cuts and the different separations of the pieces of the toy look pretty natural. With the other toys in the S.H. Monsterarts line, you have all the different cuts in the sculpt of the organic design that look a little weird. So as you can see, Kiryu is very much a mechanical monster. As the name of the movie that he is in, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, states, he is the Mechagodzilla of the movie, and he is also the Mechagodzilla of the Millennium series. They don't call it Mechagodzilla in the movie. The scientists don't anyways. The little girl, the daughter of one of the scientists, says that Mechagodzilla would have been a good name, but they decided to go with Kiryu instead. And they called it Kiryu because in Japanese it means mechanical dragon. One minor nitpick I have of this toy is that Kiryu is actually a little bit slimmer than how it appears in the movies. And this is probably done because the people that designed the toy wanted to make a Kiryu that looked good and didn't necessarily have to represent the Kiryu in the movie, which of course had a suit actor inside of it, and obviously the proportions for that were a little bit bigger. But other than that though, this toy definitely captures the likeness of Kiryu. It's got all the details. I mean, if you look closely enough, you can even see the black material in between the armor plates that looks kind of like muscle material, and that is something you see in the movies too. And so Bandai spared no expense at making this a very, very good looking Kiryu. I mean, from head to toe, this is just a nicely detailed and very cool figure. Just to show you how much detail was put in this toy, let's open up the mouth. And inside you could see Kiryu's teeth. And the teeth are organic. And for those who haven't seen this movie, Kiryu was built around the bones of the original Godzilla, the very, very first one. And so that was partly due to the fact that the movie Godzilla against Mechagodzilla kind of had its own original timeline. Basically, it took the original Godzilla and said that happened. Dr. Serizawa destroyed the original Godzilla using the oxygen destroyer, and all that was left were the bones of the original Godzilla. And after that, Japan was attacked a couple times by some other different monsters, and eventually another Godzilla appears. And that's when they decided, hey, you know what's a good idea? Let's build a mechanical Godzilla using the bones of the original Godzilla and the DNA of the original Godzilla. And so that's how we got the Kiryu. This mostly mechanical, but a little bit organic robot. Another cool detail in the mouth is those little lasers in the back. Those are Kiryu's oral masers. I think I said lasers earlier. Lasers, masers, you know what I mean. So that's very, very neat. Like I said, Bandai kind of went all out on making this a very nice toy. I still wonder how they thought it was a good idea to make this giant death machine using the original Godzilla's bones and DNA as the basis of the machine. I mean, they figured something was going to go wrong, or at least they should have, but they didn't. And that's the wonderful thing about Godzilla movies, is they don't always have to make sense. Bandai also included 3 different head plates for the top of Kiryu's head, and so this is to represent Kiryu in different modes. You have the first one right here, which is his standby mode. It's basically yellow, just like the one at the far end, but it's got some rippling in the eyes. Then you have the reddish one right here, and that's basically for when the Japanese military loses control of Kiryu because he decides to revert back to being Godzilla, the original Godzilla, and he starts rampaging as Godzilla likes to do. And then finally, the last one right there is just basically Kiryu's activated mode. And attaching the head plates to Kiryu is very easy. There's a couple slots on the top of the headpiece, and there's a couple of pegs right there, so all you have to do is pop them on, and you have Kiryu in a different mode. So right now we have him in his not so nice, ready to beat the crap out of Japan mode. And so besides looking very badass and very cool, the S.H. Monsterarts Kiryu has quite a bit of articulation. As we saw, you can open up the mouth, so we're not going to check that out. But let's check out the articulation for the rest of the toy. Right at the bottom of the head, where it meets the neck, you have a single ball joint. Then there's another joint in the middle of the neck. Seems to be another ball joint. And then finally, at the bottom of the neck, there is another ball joint. So 3 joints for the neck and the head. As you can see, it's really easy to move the little rocket launchers on the side out of the way, you know, when you're just messing around with the toy. It would have been nice if they would have locked into place when they're forward, but they don't. They do, however, lock into place when they're in the upright position, like so. As I said, would have been nice if they would have locked forward, because you can nudge them real easy, and, you know, they're not going to be even. Now, before we move on to the rest of the body, I did want to mention that there's a little cable that comes from the head of Kiryu down to the neck armor, and this is true for both sides. The only thing is that if you move the head too much, I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's right there. If you move the head too much one way or the other, you do end up popping that little cable out of place. So you kind of have to be careful when you're moving the head. I mean, it doesn't actually break the toy. You can always just put the little cable back in. No biggie. And moving on down to the chest with the nicely printed Tampo MFS-3. That's the serial number for Kiryu. You can open up these little panels like so. And doing so reveals Kiryu's Absolute Zero cannon. And so they equipped Kiryu with this cannon because it basically freezes anything to absolute zero, as the name of the cannon states, and just completely obliterates it. And obviously when you're fighting Godzilla, you want to use any technology you have to your advantage. Now, unlike some of the other S.H. Monsterarts releases, this does not come with an effect part. So, I mean, while it is cool that you can open up the panels on the chest and see the cannon, it would have been much cooler if you could display your Kiryu with a nice little effect coming out of it to give you that absolute zero ray attack look. Back to the articulation, we have 2 ball joints at the shoulders. There's one at the shoulder itself, and then there's another one right here at the body. I don't know if you can see it that well. Basically, it allows the shoulder to go up and down, but then you can also move the shoulder forward and back. It's got a decent amount of range. The elbows are double jointed, and they have some pretty good range also. At the wrist, you have a nice ball swivel. It's got a decent amount of range of motion. As you can see, the cuff on the armor right there does restrict it from moving too much, but it's still pretty good. Now, I wanted to mention that the fingers are a nice soft plastic, so if you want, you can spread the fingers a bit. They'll stay that way for a little bit. They do have a tendency of going back to their original position. Moving on down to the midsection, where the chest connects to the abs, you have a ball joint, and you can rock the figure side to side that way a little bit, and you can also move it side to side that way. And now let's move on to the lower half of the toy, which pretty much has the most articulation of the toy. At the thigh, we have a ball joint, and you can't move the leg that much at this part, just because you have that cable right there that runs from this piece of the armor to the top part of the leg armor. So this you actually don't want to move too much, because unlike the cable that runs from the head to the neck, once you move this too much, it will snap and break the toy. This does look to be permanently attached, unlike the cable at the head. So be careful with this one. You don't want to break your toy. At the knee, we have a single joint. It doesn't move a whole lot, but it's pretty okay. And now the ankles are on a ball joint, as you can see, which is attached to a hinge that allows the feet to extend out quite a bit. The only thing about that is you do end up with a gap between the foot and the leg, but it does give you that extra range of motion to do some extra stuff with your toy. And now for Kiryu's tail. It's got a whole mess of ball joints. There are 14 ball joints in the tail, and most of the segments have their own individual ball joint. And the 6 or so pieces at the end of the tail, that's just one molded piece. There's no ball joints there, but other than that, you got a lot of nice ball joints to mess around with. But that's not all the articulation in the lower half. You have these panels right here that open up in the thighs, and they reveal a booster. There's one on each side. And so basically those are boosters that help Kiryu move about. On the back, these thrusters are on ball swivels, and so you can move them quite a bit. And you can point them against the direction that you want your Kiryu flying in. So in this case, it's going to be going this way. One of the extras that Kiryu comes with are these blades right there. And so in the movie, they come out of the arm-mounted lasers right there. And so obviously, with the toy, you just attach them onto the arm-mounted lasers, and you got yourself a nice blade for your Kiryu. If I remember correctly, in the movie, Kiryu only uses one of the arm-mounted blades, but obviously for this set, you get one for each side, so you can have them on both arms of the Kiryu. If I can get it in. And that way you can pose Kiryu ready to shank somebody. So really my only major gripe with this release is that we didn't get any effect parts. I mean, Kiryu is just such a badass robot. It's got so much firepower. You got the rocket launchers on the shoulders, you've got the arm-mounted lasers, you got the oral masers in the mouth, you have the absolute zero cannon. I mean, really, it was just a missed opportunity not to be able to showcase just how much destruction the artillery on this mecha can do. And really a shame, because otherwise this is just an awesome toy. It's just very good looking, a very good representation of Kiryu. Like I mentioned, it's not perfect, it is a little bit too slim to be the Kiryu in the movie, but when you can get past that, it's just an awesome toy all the way around. So there you have it, the S.H. Monsterarts Kiryu. This was brought to us as a sample by Bluefin Tamashii Nations. So this has been Sentai Seiya with another CollectionDX review. We'll see you around, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.